I can't take it anymore. I just want to run away.
Single parenting, taking care of my father-in-law Andrew, and handling the chores while also looking after my husband Kenneth and my mother-in-law Nicole. Amidst all this chaos, Kenneth left, saying, "I need a break, so I'm going on a trip abroad. Why do I have to handle everything alone?" As tears streamed down my face, I felt a warm hand on my head. My name is Shirley. I'm a 31-year-old housewife. I've been married to Kenneth for 4 years, and we just had our first child last year. Just when I was planning to return to work when our child turned 1, we were summoned to my in-laws' house. Their house is about a 30-minute drive away. It's a bit complicated to get there by train, and traveling with a baby on public transportation is tough. So I asked Kenneth if we could drive, but he insisted. Gas prices are up, and it's easier to take the train. When I asked if he could help with the baby and the heavy luggage, he responded, "Why should I? That's a mother's job." I thought he might help, seeing how hard it was for me, but I was mistaken about Kenneth. Even when I was struggling with the baby and the heavy bags, Kenneth didn't lift a finger. His belongings consisted of just his wallet and mobile phone stuffed into his pockets. He didn't even carry a bag. And yet, he didn't help at all. Instead, he said, "If you don't hurry, I'll leave you behind," and walked off ahead by himself. I knew he wasn't very helpful, but this was beyond disappointing. I wondered if he might change once our child grew up a bit and started saying, "Dad." But I told myself to stop expecting anything. For now, I needed to focus on getting to my in-laws' house as quickly as possible. "You took your time. What were you doing?" Nicole immediately questioned me when I arrived, a while after Kenneth. "There were a lot of people." I was going to mention the heavy luggage too, but Nicole cut me off, saying, "Hurry up and come in. I've been waiting forever," and headed back inside, leaving me behind with the baby and all the bags. Nicole has always been cold to me. Even when I visit their house, she barely acknowledges my presence. She couldn't completely ignore me now that I was holding her grandchild, but her cold attitude hadn't changed. When I entered the living room, Kenneth was already sprawled on the sofa, engrossed in his mobile phone. "Where's Andrew?" I asked, looking for my usually stern-faced father-in-law. "He's not here," Nicole replied. "What? Not here? That's why I called you here today." "Kenneth, listen up too."
Yeah, okay.
Even when Nicole admonished him, Kenneth didn't bother looking up from his phone. Ignoring this, Nicole looked at me and said, "Andrew hurt his leg and is in the hospital." "What? He's hospitalized?" Hearing this for the first time, I was shocked. Even Kenneth looked up, but only briefly before returning his gaze to his phone. "He's getting old, you know. He missed a step on the stairs and couldn't move. But it's just a fracture, so he won't be in the hospital for too long." "I see." I was relieved it wasn't more serious. But then Nicole continued with less reassuring news. "The doctor said it would take a long time for him to walk properly again. Basically, he's bedridden." "What?" My in-laws married late, and Kenneth was their only son born when they were older. So they're already in their 70s, though I thought they were still pretty healthy. "That's tough. So, that's why I need your help." "What?" I commented that it must be hard for them, but Nicole straightforwardly asked for help. As I tilted my head in confusion, Nicole added, "I can't handle it alone. Kenneth, you need to help too. So we're moving into your apartment." "What?" I understood the difficulty, but the suddenness of it shocked me. I was the only one surprised. Kenneth, on the other hand, said, "Sure. We've got extra space." easily agreeing. "Kenneth, wait a minute." Ignoring my panic, Nicole smiled, saying, "I knew you'd say that. I knew Kenneth would agree, so I've already arranged for the move." "What?" "The movers are coming tomorrow, so be ready." "Wait a minute." The rapid succession of events was overwhelming, and I couldn't keep up. But Kenneth, as usual, just said, "All right." "Thanks," she said, smiling widely. I was completely ignored. What is wrong with this family? In the end, I had to take care of our crying baby and couldn't discuss the situation further before leaving. Of course, Kenneth didn't help on the way back either, walking ahead on his own. I was really worried. And my fears were confirmed. While I was busy with single parenting, Nicole kept making demands after moving in. "Hey, Shirley, Andrew is calling you. The housework isn't done properly. You should at least do the dishes. Could you go shopping? I'm tired. Could you give me a shoulder massage? I'm hungry. Could you cook something? I'm not your wife. Even if I were, you should help out a little." I wanted to say, but I couldn't muster the energy or courage. Even after they moved in, Kenneth remained the same, either lounging around watching TV or fiddling with his mobile phone. And he would say things like, "I'm hungry." Just like Nicole. I spent my days doing housework while carrying my baby on my back. On top of that, Andrew needs to go to the bathroom. So I had to take care of him too after he was discharged from the hospital. Nicole, who I thought would at least take care of Andrew, didn't help at all. They were a perfectly matched pair, both doing whatever they pleased. "Sorry, Shirley," Andrew would say, the only one who showed me any gratitude as I ran around taking care of everything. If it weren't for him, I think I would have lost my mind already. "Shirley, pizza isn't cooked." "Sorry, can you press the switch of the oven?" "Do it yourself." Nicole said this while laughing at the TV. "Hey Shirley, I have a business trip starting tomorrow, so get my stuff ready." "Sorry, I'm busy with the baby's food." "Can you do it yourself?" "What? Who do you think provides for this family? You should be able to do that much. You're useless," Kenneth said as he opened his mobile phone. To make things worse, the baby on my back started crying. It was probably time to change the diaper. My hair was a mess, and I couldn't remember the last time I wore clean clothes. The laundry was piled up, and I hadn't had time to tidy up. So the house was a mess. Seeing this, Nicole yelled, "Clean up! Is this some kind of punishment? Did I do something wrong in a past life, God?" That's how close I was to my mental and physical limits. "I'm really sorry, Shirley. Thank you for everything. I'll start rehab soon and try to walk again." "It's okay, Andrew. Just rest for now. If you rush it, it might get worse." His kind words touched my heart. But I was really at my limit. The baby's night cries were severe, and the lack of sleep was overwhelming. Late at night, as I held my finally sleeping baby, I felt my consciousness fading. I was trying my best not to drop the baby. Kenneth shouted, "Shut up!" and kicked me and the baby out of the bedroom so he could sleep alone. Nicole was also sleeping peacefully in a separate room from Andrew. Achoo. It's getting quite warm, but the nights are still cold. I make sure the baby is warm enough to avoid getting a cold, but I tend to neglect myself. I sighed deeply, thinking that all mothers must feel the same way. The sky outside was getting brighter, and the thought of another hectic day made me feel gloomy. In the end, I didn't get any sleep until morning. Kenneth and Nicole woke up looking refreshed after a good night's sleep. "Why isn't breakfast ready yet?" No good morning, just complaints right away. I was fed up. I wondered what they would do if I just left. I thought about it. But I knew I couldn't. Even if I left, how would I survive? I have no parents or siblings to rely on. I don't even have the energy to look for a job. Most of all, I was worried about Andrew. I didn't care about Kenneth and Nicole, but I couldn't leave him behind. If I left, they wouldn't take care of him. I didn't even want to think about what would happen to him.
What should I do? Achoo.
Just as I sighed and started to complain, I sneezed again, probably because I stayed up all night. Disgusting. Do you have a cold? Don't spread it. Shockingly, those were my husband's words. How unkind can a person be? I wanted to slap the old me who thought he was cool and attractive before marriage.
I can't take this anymore. I want to escape from this world.
I whispered, but I knew I couldn't run away from reality. I gently put the sleeping baby in bed and headed to the kitchen. As I was thinking about making breakfast for the two of them and then for Andrew, Kenneth said, "Oh, we're going on a trip tomorrow." "What?" I turned around, thinking how sudden this was, and saw Kenneth and Nicole smirking. "What did you say?" I said, "Mom and I are going on a trip tomorrow." "What? Just the two of you?" "Yeah. We can't relax at home with the baby crying and you always being busy. We're going on an overseas trip for a change of pace." What is he talking about? He's the one lounging around the most in this house, yet he says he can't relax. And overseas. Exactly. I can't stand having an incompetent daughter-in-law. I hope you struggle without us. Well, I wouldn't struggle at all. I almost said that, but held my tongue. Nicole, with a smug smile, said, "Take care of Andrew and the house while we're gone. We're going to relax for the first time in ages." Listening to their joyful conversation about the trip, I felt something inside me crumble. And so, they left for their overseas trip, leaving me, the baby, and Andrew behind. Kenneth took a week off, and they wouldn't return until a week later.
I don't care anymore.
As soon as I saw them off, I felt like nothing mattered anymore. Why do they think they are having a hard time while I'm the one working the hardest? How can they treat me so terribly?
I've been working so hard all by myself. I feel like an idiot.
As soon as I said it, tears started to fall.
Oh no.
I knew I should stop, but I couldn't. Once the tears started, they wouldn't stop, continuously flowing down my cheeks.
Ugh, hick.
I have to pull myself together, I'm a mother. Look, the baby is crying. I need to go and pick them up. But my body wouldn't move. What a useless person I am. That's when it happened. The baby's crying stopped. What? I looked up in surprise and felt something warm on my head. When I looked up to see what it was, I found Andrew sitting next to me, gently stroking my head. In his hands was my still sleeping, precious child, with traces of tears on their face. "Andrew? I'm really sorry. Thank you for all your hard work." "How did you manage to walk?" "Well, more like crawling." "Haha, I could compete in a crawling race with the baby." Andrew gave me the kindest smile. "You don't have to try so hard anymore." But I'm starting to be able to move a little. I'll take care of myself as much as I can and help out around the house too. Andrew. You don't have to try so hard anymore. Andrew, stroking my head like a true father, made me burst into tears. I don't have to try so hard anymore. The moment I thought that, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A week later. The baby's cries echoed through the house. "Okay, hold on a moment." As I hurried to the baby, I heard Andrew say, "It's all right, I'll change the diaper." Peeking in, I saw Andrew changing the diaper while humming a tune. Relieved, I went back to finish my lunch. Eating a meal slowly, how wonderful. Just as I thought that, my mobile phone rang. It was Kenneth. Hello?
Where are you?
That was the first thing he said after returning home. I could tell he was furious on the other end of the line. What do you mean, where? I'm at home.
I went back to the apartment and found nothing.
Well, we moved.
We moved.
It was no wonder he was shocked. Right now, Kenneth and Nicole were probably staring in disbelief at a completely empty apartment.
When did you move?
When? Right after you guys left for your trip.
Why did you move without telling me? Come back right now.
That's impossible. I already terminated the lease.
Terminated the lease?
Yes, but you don't have to leave immediately. You can stay until the end of next month. Just don't make a mess.
Why did you terminate the lease without asking me?
It's my decision. After all, it's my apartment. That's right. The apartment was actually the one I had rented since my single days. When I was single, I was earning a decent income and chose a relatively spacious apartment because I didn't want to feel cramped. When we got married, I decided to continue living there. He never paid the rent, of course. He said, "You're the one who rented it, so you pay." The same went for utility bills. I had retired when I gave birth, but I managed to keep paying the rent with my savings.
Did you forget that? You used to say, "Who do you think is providing for this family?"
But really, who was it? I said, implying that Kenneth never gave me enough money to live on. Kenneth fell silent, unable to respond. In the background, I could hear Nicole shouting,
"Shirley, what do you think you're doing?"
"Oh, Nicole, did you enjoy your overseas trip? You must have been just as lazy there as you are here."
That's none of your business.
You're right, it isn't. And it won't be in the future either, so don't contact me again.
What do you mean by that?
I'm saying I want a divorce. Once we're divorced, we won't be related. I have no obligation or reason to take care of you. It seemed Kenneth had the phone on speaker because I heard him shout,
"A divorce!"
"You don't do anything around the house. You don't take care of the child or show any interest in us. I don't need a husband like that.
How will you live without me?
I'll live more peacefully without you.
How will you manage without an income?
Don't worry about that. I've already started looking for a job.
What about the baby?
I'm also looking for a childcare center." "It's only natural," I said, and on the other end of the line, Kenneth's trembling voice said,
"When do you have time for that?"
"Do you mean to say you understand I'm so busy that I have no time to look for a job or a childcare center?"
Well, yeah.
Even though you understand that, you still went on an overseas trip for a change of pace, doing nothing to help?
Ugh.
Not a word of rebuttal. Do you think there's any benefit to this marriage for me? Kenneth was silent. That is your answer, you idiot. But from behind Kenneth, his mother started shouting again.
Shirley, what about Andrew?
The empty apartment meant Andrew wasn't there either. But she needn't worry.
I'm with Shirley,
Andrew said.
Andrew!
Nicole was shocked, and Andrew calmly replied,
I've had enough of you. What are you saying? So, let's get a divorce too. What? I'll contact you through a lawyer. Once you find a new place, let me know on my mobile phone. Please, don't leave me. What are you talking about? I'm not leaving you. What? I'm just throwing away the garbage that is a wife who abandoned her husband,
he said and headed towards the baby's room. There was silence on the other end of the line. Nicole must be in shock. Hello?
Yes.
Kenneth's weak voice came through, so he wasn't fainting. As Andrew said, we'll discuss the divorce through a lawyer.
Okay.
I'll contact you again, so be prepared to pay alimony and child support.
Alimony. I understand child support, but why alimony?
Because of the emotional distress you've caused me.
But I also.
What do you mean, you also? I waited for Kenneth to justify himself, but he stayed silent. Nothing to say as expected. Living so freely, what kind of suffering could he have?
I've documented everything you've done. No, everything you haven't done, every day. What?
I heard keeping a diary helps in divorce cases. I intended it to be a record of our child's growth, but it turned out to be useful for other reasons. Whether I wrote down everything you didn't do or didn't write anything at all, it shows you did nothing. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Finally, Kenneth apologized. I'm sorry. From now on, I'll take care of our son and help around the house. So, whose care are you taking? Our son's. Oh, really? But who's this son you're talking about? How are you going to care for a non-existent child? I took a deep breath and shouted.
Our child is a girl. Forgetting your own child's gender. Are you out of your mind? What? You said it was a boy during the pregnancy.
The doctor made a mistake because of the baby's position on the ultrasound. You don't even remember our daughter's name, do you? That's why you're confused about her gender.
Of course I remember. It's something like Reese, the gender-neutral name. It's Rose. You idiot!
I shouted and hung up the phone. In my anger, I also turned off the phone. I would need to stay in touch for now, but once everything was settled, I would block him.
How could he even mix up her gender?
That's not something that should ever happen. It just showed how little Kenneth interacted with Rose. He had never changed her diaper, never held her, never even called her by name. I couldn't believe I married such a person, I thought with a bitter laugh. Later, we found a good lawyer through Andrew's connections to handle both divorces. Kenneth and Nicole tried calling me a lot, but I ignored everything except what was necessary. In the end, both my divorce and Andrew's divorce were finalized. I made Kenneth pay alimony and child support in a lump sum. I told him he wouldn't see Rose again if he didn't. He had visitation rights, after all. I thought he'd insist on paying in installments, but surprisingly, he accepted. It must have been a shock to realize the divorce. And that he didn't even know his child's gender. Too late to regret now. Nicole kept crying to Andrew until the end, but their marriage was already broken beyond repair. They divided their assets, but because Nicole had spent so much on trips and other things, Andrew ended up with more. Kenneth, who was left with no money after the lump sum payment, and Nicole living on a meager pension. Those two moved into a cheap, old apartment together. Andrew, Rose, and I are happily living in our new home. Andrew, who could only crawl before, gradually started to stand, and now, with a cane, he can walk quite well. It's heartwarming that he learned to stand around the same time as Rose did. Andrew is very happy.
One day, we'll go for a walk together, won't we, Rose?
Andrew said, and whether she understood or not. Andrew said, and whether she understood or not. Rose smiled and said, Working hard is good, but overdoing it isn't. Since I recently got a new job, I make sure to rely on childcare centers and public services without hesitation. As long as I'm smiling, Rose will smile too. Wait a minute. You're being way too rough.
You like it this way, don't you? She never does this for you, right?
Don't say that.
Call me by my name. Like you always do.
I was standing in front of the bedroom door. I quickly realized that my husband Norman's companion was my own sister, Elvira. Anger surged within me, and I pinched my hand to calm the urge to burst in. I needed to stay calm first. I took out my smartphone and decided to record their conversation. I never expected Elvira to be the other woman. I noticed something was wrong when I came home. I'm home. At the entrance, there were unfamiliar women's shoes. I immediately knew he had brought a woman into our home. Then, I heard voices coming from the upstairs bedroom, so I moved to the door. The voices were loud, echoing through the house.
But why are we at this house today? Because it's more thrilling this way, isn't it?
That's true, but we usually do this at your place.
I've been trying not to cause a scene. She's so clueless, she never noticed.
That's right. She'd never suspect we're doing this. What an idiot. I finally understood why I hadn't noticed their relationship before. They had been meeting at her place. Still, I continued recording, thinking about how I could use this as evidence. Imagining how their parents would react kept me from losing my mind. I considered bursting in, but my feet wouldn't move. Why? If I went in, I'd catch them in the act. Maybe I couldn't bear to see that.
When will you give me a child?
No, that's too risky. Your husband would notice.
It'll be fine. I can do it with my husband later, and he won't notice. He's so clueless.
You're a terrible wife.
You're worse.
Listening to their conversation made my head ache and I felt nauseous. My mind was at its breaking point. I decided to call out to my husband. Where are you? The two of them must have panicked upon realizing I was there, because I heard the window open. They probably tried to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst decision they could have made. Because it was snowing heavily today. Oh, they messed up big time. I slowly entered the room and looked around. Their clothes were scattered everywhere. They went outside completely naked. I saw them huddling in the corner, trying not to be seen. I immediately locked the door. And then, I started thinking about what kind of punishment I should give them. I never thought I'd feel such a thrill. My name is Dana, I'm 34 years old, and I work in sales at a local company. I live with my husband Norman, who is 3 years older than me. I met Norman at a sales meeting. In my mid-20s, I had just switched jobs and was still getting used to the work. I remember how kindly he treated me.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Keep up the good work.
I will.
At that time, I just thought he was a nice guy. It took some time before we met again, but it felt like fate. I have an older sister, Elvira. Norman was one of her classmates. Elvira got married 3 years ago, and Norman attended her wedding. Do you remember me?
Oh, from the sales meeting.
That's right.
Meeting you here is unexpected. Excuse me, but how do you know Elvira?
Elvira and I were classmates in high school and college.
Oh, I see.
As we were having a pleasant conversation, the star of today's event, Elvira, arrives.
Oh, did you two know each other? Not exactly. We've worked together before and he was a great help.
Oh, it was nothing.
But thanks to you, I secured the contract.
That's definitely your own skill. As we continued this back and forth, Elvira began to laugh.
What? I was just thinking you two seem to get along well. Don't tease me. I'm actually quite serious.
Elvira's intervention led to Norman and me exchanging contact information. However, knowing Elvira's assertive nature, I thought Norman might find it a nuisance. But about a week after we exchanged contact details, I received a call.
Hello.
Sorry for the sudden call.
It's okay. Is something wrong?
Well,
What is it?
would you like to have dinner sometime?
Yes.
I responded instinctively. I'll call you again. With that, he hung up. I didn't mind, but I couldn't just refuse now. Honestly, with little experience in relationships, I didn't know what to do. It was just dinner, but I still felt uneasy. Living at home at the time, I decided to consult Elvira. Even after getting married, Elvira had chosen to stay with her parents, remaining at home.
So he asked you out? That's great. Well, it's not that great. I don't have much experience with this. Then you were right to come to me for advice.
Elvira had always been popular. Even during our school days, she often brought different guys home. I thought she would give good advice, but that was a mistake. As adults, she had calmed down, but she still enjoyed pushing me, who was more reserved, to do things her way. How many times had she made me cry?
Dana, don't worry. With me around, there's nothing to fear. So, what should I do? Let's see, how about some seduction? What? Norman is weak to that kind of thing.
Wait a minute. I'm just going out for dinner.
What are you talking about? It won't just end at dinner.
Elvira continued to give outlandish advice. But that wasn't the only problem. My parents doted on Elvira, letting her do as she pleased. They preferred Elvira, who could be easily flattered, over me, who was more difficult to handle. I had wanted to leave home right after graduating from college, but they wouldn't allow it. Despite not being genuinely interested, they wanted to keep me close. Finally, the day of the dinner arrived.
Good luck.
All right, I'm off. In the end, the dinner was a success. It was very enjoyable, much better than feeling out of place at home. If you don't mind, could we meet again?
If it's all right with you, yes please.
Great. I'm not very used to women.
If you say that, I'm even less used to men.
No, I am.
No, really, I am.
As we exchanged these words, we both burst into laughter. It had been a long time since I felt this happy. It was natural that as we grew closer, we would start dating. The one who didn't take it well was Elvira. Despite all her teasing.
What? You're really dating?
Yes, but
I never thought you'd end up dating. Did you follow my advice?
there's no way I can do that.
Why did this happen?
The reason Elvira had gone so far as to provoke this failure would be revealed by an unexpected person.
What?
Really? That person was Elvira's husband, Johnny.
Yeah.
You know I met Elvira back in college, right?
Yes, she told me.
I also got to know Norman back then, but it seems she liked him since high school. She couldn't do anything about it because he had a girlfriend.
But why are you telling me this?
I overheard her talking the other day.
But she's not all bad.
Johnny looked a bit sad. He must have truly cared about Elvira. Yet, Elvira was still hung up on a guy she liked in the past. This issue was deeper than I had imagined and would lead to an unexpected situation. After we started dating, Elvira constantly questioned my actions. She would come to my room and stay until she got an answer that satisfied her.
So, what else? Well, there's nothing else.
Like, did you go to a hotel or something?
I don't know about that.
This was my small act of defiance. After that, Elvira calmed down. A year had passed since Norman and I started dating. On my birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
This is your birthday present from me.
What?
In the small box he handed me was a beautiful ring. Is this?
I want you to marry me. I'm so happy. Of course, I will.
I promise to make you happy. I was over the moon when I accepted his proposal. Not only because I could be with Norman, but also because I could finally leave my parents' house. I contained my excitement as we visited both families. First, we went to meet Norman's parents, and they welcomed me warmly. The problem was my family. So, Dana is finally getting married.
I'm welcoming Norman.
Thank you. Even my usually indifferent parents seemed genuinely happy. But Elvira didn't stay quiet.
What? You're not going to live here?
Elvira, what are you talking about? You and Johnny are living here. We don't have any more rooms, so it's impossible.
Then we can remodel. There are always ways. Don't be unreasonable. We can't do that.
Elvira's desperation was unusual. But this was exactly what I had aimed for. After that, Elvira tried desperately to keep me at home.
Enough already. It's not for us to say. Stay out of this. You.
Even Johnny seemed taken aback by Elvira's outburst.
Anyway, we're looking for our own place. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, we'll be finding a house of our own.
If that's what you've decided, then go ahead. Thank you. I wouldn't forget Elvira's frustrated face when we left home. Finally, I had some peace. We found a small house to rent in the next town over for a bargain price. I never imagined that being with someone I loved could make me this happy. Though we lived apart, we gathered at my parents' place for holidays like summer and Christmas. It had only been a few months, but I felt a bit nervous being away for the first time. I'm home.
Welcome back. It's good to see you.
Yeah, where's Sis?
Oh, Elvira went shopping.
Lori, it's been a while.
You look good, Norman. Come on in.
As soon as we sat on the living room couch, they brought out an overwhelming amount of snacks and treats. No way I can eat all this.
Come on, it's been a while.
Well, it's only been a few months.
Don't be shy.
Up until now, Elvira had always been the priority, so I never expected such a warm welcome. Just then, Elvira and Johnny returned from shopping. Oh, Dana's here. Long time no see. I greeted them, but Elvira ignored me and went straight to the kitchen. Norman, long time no see. Have you gained some weight?
No, it's just that Dana's cooking is too good.
Well, you look happy, and that's what matters.
Thanks to her.
The family gathered, enjoying coffee and conversation. However, Elvira, usually so talkative, was unusually quiet today. We spent about an hour together when Mom noticed something. By the way, did you get the usual cake from the bakery near the station? Oh, I forgot. Come on, get it together.
But we don't really need it. What are you talking about? We do this every year. What are we going to do now? Can we still make it?
At this point, Norman raised his hand. Okay, I'll go get it. I drove here today, so it won't be a problem.
But I feel bad.
No, please let me do this. Sorry, I'll be right back. All right. As Norman prepared to leave, Elvira suddenly decided to go with him.
It's my fault for forgetting, and besides, Norman doesn't know what to get. Come on, let's go.
Elvira tugged at Norman's arm as they left. Watching them go, Dad sighed deeply.
What's wrong?
She hasn't been herself lately.
Her memory's been bad, and she just seems unmotivated overall.
Elvira, who was once doted on, now seemed to be a burden. Even her husband, Johnny, looked a bit worn out. It seemed that since I left home, my and Elvira's roles had reversed. An indescribably awkward atmosphere settled over us. The bakery was only a 10-minute drive away. It shouldn't have taken this long. Mom was the first to notice.
They're taking a long time, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been over an hour. A sense of unease crept over me. They finally returned about 30 minutes later.
You're back late. The traffic was bad. Did you get the cake?
Yeah, here it is. Mom took the bag from Elvira and checked its contents. But then she froze.
What is this?
It's what you asked for. Where did you go? This is completely wrong.
I can understand Norman making a mistake, but you were with him.
Forget it. Mom looked exhausted.
Does it really matter?
I heard her mutter under her breath. Elvira's hair was messier than when she left. I watched her closely. Johnny seemed to notice too. Our eyes met. He seemed to have something to say to me. What a mess. The atmosphere was tense, despite the family being together. How did things get this way? The rest of the summer break passed in this awkward tension. When we got home, I felt all the accumulated fatigue hit me. I fell asleep on the couch, only to be awakened by Norman's voice on the phone. What? Don't worry. She won't notice. I called out to him.
Who are you talking to?
Then, Norman looked at me with a surprised expression. He ended the call and came over to me. You're awake.
Who was that?
A colleague from work.
You seemed quite friendly for just a colleague.
As I pressed him, I could feel his irritation growing.
There's no point in lying.
What are you getting at?
Nothing.
Realizing this wasn't going anywhere, I tried to end the conversation, but Norman grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go.
Are you doubting me? Tell me.
Norman's eyes, usually so calm, were now filled with a strange intensity.
You're hurting me. Let go. Then stop doubting me. I'll do as you say.
He finally let go of my arm. Looking at my arm, I saw the clear marks he left. From that moment, I began to fear Norman. 2 months later, I received a call from Mom and headed to the hospital. Dad had fallen down the stairs at home and broken a bone.
Are you okay?
Yeah, somehow.
I heard you fell. I did something really stupid.
A few months later, Dad was discharged from the hospital, but he still needed family support at home until he fully recovered. I felt relieved that Johnny was there too, but unfortunately, he was scheduled for a 2-month business trip. The family gathered at the house that day. I'm sorry to leave you all at such a time. It's unavoidable. Do your best.
Yes. But what should I do? My back is bad too.
Then I'll. Norman interrupted and volunteered to support Dad.
I'll take care of Darren. Are you sure?
You have work and other responsibilities. I can't come every day, but I can make it on weekends.
But you're newlyweds, right?
Dana won't mind, right?
Well, having another man around will be helpful. Let's do that. But, do you not care what happens to Dad?
I didn't say that. Realizing this conversation was going nowhere, I accepted Norman's offer. Not knowing it was the beginning of a nightmare. Every Saturday, Norman started going to my parents' house. At the same time, I began to notice a sweet smell coming from him. I couldn't ignore it.
Do you smell something sweet?
Do you think so?
Like perfume.
Perfume. I could see Norman's face distort. I was sure he was hiding something. I kept questioning him. It feels like I've smelled it somewhere before. Where could it be? I asked pointedly.
You're imagining things. Do you really not know? You're being annoying. I don't know any women's perfume.
I didn't miss that statement.
I didn't say it was women's, so how did you know?
Sweet scents are usually women's perfumes. A harsh excuse.
Tell me what you know.
At that moment, something whizzed past my face. I turned around, trembling. A shattered mug lay on the floor.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I sat down on the spot. It didn't hit me, but the thought of it hitting my face made my hands shake.
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was an instant reaction.
I didn't know what to say. I remembered the fear I had felt before. From that moment on, I couldn't speak up against Norman. My state of mind returned to normal with a single phone call. Dad's condition improved, and although he was still a bit awkward, he was able to walk without crutches. It was during a call that I heard about his progress.
How are you feeling?
Much better.
That's good to hear. How's Norman?
He's been a great help. Very considerate. Hearing that made me feel a bit relieved. By the way, Johnny wants your contact information. Is it okay if I give it to him?
That's fine, but why does he need it?
We hadn't exchanged contact information. Maybe it was just a matter of timing. Johnny contacted me later that night. Sorry for the sudden message.
It's okay. You're coming back soon, right?
Yeah, in about 2 weeks.
Got it.
So, the reason I asked for your contact information. Johnny began explaining.
What do you mean by that?
I've been curious for a while. I haven't been able to say anything until now.
To be honest, I was curious too.
So you felt the same way.
I'm sorry. I just didn't know what to do.
That's the thing.
Then I'll keep an eye on them too.
I should be the one doing it, but I'm not nearby.
I'll let you know if I find out anything.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I felt a bit relieved that Johnny and I were on the same page. I couldn't just do nothing at this point. I decided to investigate Norman's actions closely. I hired someone to look into it and waited for the results. I wanted to resolve it before Johnny came back.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
I had asked for about a week's worth of investigation, but nothing suspicious came up. During the weekdays, he went to work and came home as usual. On weekends, he went to his parents' house in the morning to take care of Dad and came back at night. I reported these findings to Johnny. So that's how it is.
Was it just a misunderstanding?
Maybe.
There's nothing wrong, but it still feels weird.
I get that. It's frustrating when you've gone through all this effort.
I think it's because we were suspicious from the start.
We decided to continue our lives as usual, reassured that nothing was wrong. Johnny would be back in a week. 2 days later, Dad was able to take care of himself, and Norman's support was no longer needed.
Thanks for everything.
Yeah, no problem.
You don't look too happy.
It's nothing. His words didn't match his expression. A week passed without any significant changes. On Saturday afternoon, I got a call from my parents.
Sorry, but could you come over? Sure, but why? I need to ask you something.
Got it. I immediately informed Norman.
My parents asked me to come over, so I'm going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, that's that.
Okay. Take your time.
Yeah.
He seemed to smile happily. There was a forecast for heavy snow today. Why did they have to ask me to come on a day like this? When I arrived at my parents' house, they greeted me together. It's cold. So, what's up?
Well, sit down first.
We ended up chatting about various things.
By the way, where's Sis?
Elvira went out to meet friends before you came.
What? On a day like this? But what is it you want to ask? What was it, Lori? I don't know. What was it?
What's this? If there's nothing, I'm going home.
You've come all this way. Stay a little longer.
At this point, my parents seemed desperate to keep me from leaving. Time passed, and soon it was already past 5 p.m. It's really coming down. You might not be able to get home. Maybe you should call Norman.
Huh?
I mean, look. You might not be able to make it home.
All right, I'll do that.
I called Norman just like Dad suggested. Norman said it couldn't be helped and quickly hung up. But I felt a strange uneasiness. When I called earlier, it sounded like Norman was somewhere else. Once I thought about it, I couldn't stop worrying.
Sorry, but I have to go home.
I see. Well, be careful.
Yeah.
Outside, there was already about 2 inches of snow. Shivering from the cold, I hurried home. I'm back. The moment I opened the front door, I noticed something was off. I saw a coat that clearly wasn't mine. I immediately realized he had brought a woman over. Then I heard voices coming from the bedroom upstairs, so I headed straight for the door. Wait a minute. You're being too rough.
You like it this way, don't you? She never does this for you, right?
Don't say that.
Call me by my name. Like you always do.
At this point, I realized Norman's partner was Elvira. Anger surged within me, and I had to pinch myself to stay calm. I needed to calm down first. I took out my smartphone and started recording their conversation. I never imagined the other woman would be Elvira. Their voices echoed throughout the house as they continued. But why are we at this house today?
Because it's more exciting this way, and we haven't seen each other lately.
That's true, but we always used to meet at your parents' place.
We've been careful not to get caught. Well, she's so oblivious she never noticed.
That's true. She would never think we're doing something like this. She's such a fool. Now I understood why I hadn't realized their relationship sooner. I never thought they'd meet at their parents' place. Even though I suspected them, I convinced myself they wouldn't do such a thing with my parents around. That's why even when I hired someone to investigate, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Still, I continued recording, thinking it would serve as evidence. I kept imagining how both sets of parents would react when they heard this. It was the only thing keeping me sane. I was about to burst in, but my feet wouldn't move. Why? If I went in, I'd see them in the middle of their act. Maybe I just couldn't bear to see that.
Hey! When will you give me a child?
No, that's too risky. Your husband will find out.
It'll be fine. We can do it later, and he won't notice. He's clueless.
You're a terrible wife.
You're worse. Besides, he won't be back until tomorrow. It's going to get harder to meet, so let's enjoy it.
All right. Hearing this kind of conversation made my head hurt and nauseated me. I was at my limit. So I decided to call out to Norman. Where are you? Realizing my presence, they panicked and I heard a window open. They were probably trying to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst thing they could do. They've really messed up now. I slowly entered the room and looked around, noticing that the clothes scattered around were still there, just as they had been discarded. It seemed they had gone outside completely naked. When I looked outside, I saw them crouched down in a small corner, trying not to be seen. I immediately locked the door. Then, I began to think about what kind of punishment I should give. Maybe I should leave them like this for a while. I left the bedroom and went downstairs. I headed to the kitchen and slowly brewed a cup of coffee. After making the coffee, I returned to the bedroom. I sipped my coffee while looking toward the balcony. The cold must have been too much because they started banging on the window.
Open the door! I'm going to freeze out here!
Of course, I ignored those desperate cries. Then, a great idea came to me. I picked up my smartphone and made a call. First, to my parents and then to my in-laws. I told them it was an emergency and managed to get them to come over. The last call was to Johnny. He was supposed to come back today. Perfect timing.
I was about to call you too.
Really? Are you at home by any chance?
Yes, I am, but...
Since you called, something must be up, right?
Yes, actually.
I didn't want to spoil the surprise by explaining everything now. So I should come over to your place?
Yes, to my house.
I'm actually at the station now, so I'll head over right away. See you soon. Now, all the key players were on their way. But I couldn't help but be curious about Johnny's reaction. It was as if he already knew what was going on. There was no point in overthinking it, so I decided to wait for everyone to arrive. Both sets of parents arrived first, and I asked them to wait in the living room. About 10 minutes later, Johnny arrived. Sorry I'm late. The snow made the roads terrible.
No problem. Please come in.
With everyone gathered in the living room, it was time to reveal everything.
So, what happened? You said it was an emergency, so we rushed here in this snow.
Yes, you need to explain what's going on.
It's about the two who aren't here. It's understandable that Elvira is missing, but where's Norman? Exactly. So, please follow me.
I led everyone upstairs to the bedroom.
What the hell is this? Look over there.
I pointed to the balcony, where two naked figures were staring back at us.
What is going on?
I realized leaving them out there could be life-threatening, so I unlocked the door. I thought I was going to die.
Please give us something warm.
I tossed blankets to the two of them.
You're going to explain this, right?
Dad looked furious, on the verge of hitting someone.
They were having an affair.
Elvira looked up, shocked to see Johnny.
What are you doing here?
I came back from my trip today.
That's impossible. You told me you were coming back tomorrow.
I was told today. And clearly, Johnny was here. My head was spinning. Then Johnny started to explain.
I predicted this would happen and made plans accordingly.
Lying to you was part of it. Johnny looked at me. Sorry, I had to use Dana as well.
What?
Johnny said he had also asked his parents for help. That's why they suddenly told me to come home. Dad trying to hold me back was also under Johnny's orders.
So they knew about the relationship between you two?
No, it was just a guess. Even when you reported it, I couldn't quite believe it.
I'm sorry. I never imagined anything like that would happen at home.
Now that I think about it, when Dad broke his leg and needed care, he was the first to volunteer. Well, enough explanation. Let's think about what to do with these two idiots who fell into the trap. The two of them just looked down and didn't say anything. So I decided to let everyone listen to the recording. If you don't want to talk, I'll make you.
What are you planning to do?
This. When I played the recording, the voices of the two of them echoed through the bedroom. Just hearing it was enough to understand what they were doing.
Stop it! You're not in a position to say that.
Listen to the end. Everyone in the room's gaze turned to one of contempt.
You've got to be kidding me. You're no longer part of this family.
Maybe it was a mistake to pour love into you.
Don't ever show your face again.
So there. Norman looked like he was about to cry, but my in-laws desperately apologized to Dad and me. I never thought she was such a woman. I knew you were still hung up on Norman. But I truly loved you.
I felt the same way. Hey! Who said you could talk?
Johnny's eyes were filled with hatred. It was so terrifying, it almost made me cry. So, what are we going to do with you two? What do you think? Well, divorce is certain. And compensation too.
Then maybe we'll just throw you out again?
Hearing that, the two of them showed their last resistance.
It was your fault for always being busy with work and ignoring me.
That's not a reason to cheat. If you want to argue, be more logical. You'll prove you're an idiot. Actually, you already have. Elvira couldn't say anything. Got anything to say, monkey? I was just led on by Elvira.
Are you really going to blame me? You were into it too. You invited me to the hotel that time.
That time? When we went shopping together. Oh. I remembered something like that happening during the summer vacation. Everything must have started from there. Lastly, why did you involve Norman? Seeing you so happy irritated me. Even though you were always too shy around men. So you were frustrated because you lost the guy you liked back then. That's right. How stupid. There's no value in such a monkey. You should face reality. I couldn't help but laugh. Enough. If we keep associating with these people, we'll end up as fools too. Let's go, everyone. Wait! Don't talk to me so casually. We slowly closed the bedroom door. The snow outside was getting heavier. We couldn't stay here, so we headed to the nearest relative's house. On the way, I kept wondering what would happen to the two who had been abandoned by their families. My in-laws stayed over at my parents' house and left the next day. At that time, they apologized again and declared that Norman would live as a stranger from now on. Shall we go then? Yes. We went together to discuss the divorce and alimony. Since we had the recording data, the procedure was not too difficult. We were able to get divorced quickly and decided to claim alimony as well. And today is the day Johnny is leaving my parents' house. Thank you for everything so far. You were like a son to us. It's going to be lonely without you. That's true. If only you two could have gotten married. Please, stop it. As we were enjoying this pleasant moment, those two showed up. And Norman, for some reason, had shaved his head. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking it was a silly attempt to show remorse. What are you here for? Then, they both deeply apologized. Our parents abandoned us. You are the only one we can rely on now. Please.
I told you never to show your face again.
Dad is right. And we are already divorced. That means we are strangers. So hurry up and leave. But they still didn't give up. It's annoying that you keep doing this. Stop embarrassing yourself. I can't watch this any longer. Then Johnny extended his hand to Elvira.
Will you help us?
I watched nervously.
Help? What are you misunderstanding? I just wanted you to move out of the way because you are in the way.
Seeing Elvira's stunned face, I struggled to hold back my laughter. My stomach hurt from it. So, that's the deal. You'd better leave. Dad seems to be reaching his limit. Dad stood with his arms crossed, blocking the way like a devil. And for some reason, he seemed proud. Seeing that, the two of them left in a hurry.
Finally, they're gone.
Well, I guess I'll be going too. Feel free to visit whenever you like. Since then, I've been living with my parents. And I keep in touch with Johnny, and sometimes we go out for drinks. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm sure it will be a fun one. Grandma? Did you get the Thanksgiving gift I sent?
Not yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. I picked it out myself. I'm sure you'll love it, Grandma.
My granddaughter Natalie said this with a voice full of excitement. It seemed that Natalie had thoughtfully picked out something special to delight me. After ending the video call with Natalie, a delivery arrived about 10 minutes later.
I have a package for you.
I was puzzled by the unexpected lightness of the package and tilted my head in confusion. Just to be sure, I checked the sender's information, and it was indeed from my eldest son, Matthew, with the correct address.
What's this about?
I murmured with a furrowed brow, and the delivery person looked worried.
Is there something?
Oh, no. Sorry, I was talking to myself. Matthew works for a top trading company and has always sent us Thanksgiving gifts every year, but this was the first time the package was so light. After bringing the package inside, I opened the box.
What is this?
I couldn't believe my eyes. Inside the box was just one dirty, used towel. Beneath it was a cute envelope decorated with anime characters. Opening the envelope, I found a note with messy, hard-to-read handwriting which said, "Grandma, thank you for everything." In the corner of the letter was written Natalie.
Is this it?
The utterly unexpected content of the gift left me bewildered and confused. My name is Kara, a 65-year-old housewife. I got married in my 20s and gave birth to my eldest son, Matthew. Later, we had a second son, and I was blessed with a smooth-sailing family life. Both boys were energetic but never got into trouble and grew up to be kind and honest individuals. Someday when we grow up, we'll definitely repay Mom and Dad for everything.
You boys really are such good kids, not causing any trouble.
After finishing their education, each of the kids went on to start their independent lives in society. A few years ago, Matthew got married, and the following year, they welcomed a girl named Natalie.
Natalie is so adorable. She truly is the apple of my eye.
Natalie was our first grandchild, and both my husband and I doted on her immensely. Matthew, while sometimes bemused by our adoration, never failed to keep us updated over the phone.
Natalie can write her own name now.
Is that so? Kids grow up so fast, don't they? However, Victoria, my daughter-in-law, seemed to dislike us for some reason. Kara, please don't spoil Natalie too much.
She's our child, and we don't want her to get the wrong education from others. But Natalie is our granddaughter and part of our family. What's wrong with that?
If Natalie becomes too attached to you and stops listening to me, her mom, it could interfere with her upbringing. That would be problematic. Please don't get too involved from now on.
Even if you say that. We don't see her every day. I think it's fine to spoil our granddaughter a bit when we do see her. Is that also not allowed?
No, it's not.
This is our approach to raising her.
Faced with such a statement, I had no choice but to refrain from arguing further. As Natalie's birthday approached, I thought to myself,
it's almost Natalie's birthday. I wonder what she would like as a present.
I called Victoria, excited at the thought. Victoria responded in a flat tone.
That's all right. We don't want the house to be cluttered with too many things.
We were also not informed in advance about Natalie's nursery school sports day. I wish you had told us earlier about the sports day. We would have loved to go and cheer for Natalie. When I protested, Victoria scoffed.
I thought it would be more of a bother to inform people who are far away.
This kind of situation repeated itself several times. Sometimes, Matthew would send us photos of the family. One Christmas, there were pictures of Natalie happily decorating with Victoria's parents, and during a summer vacation, there were photos of Natalie in a swimsuit, holding hands with Victoria's parents by the lake. It seemed that Victoria's parents were experiencing all the things we wished to do but couldn't. Each time we learned about these events, we felt an indescribable loneliness, as if we were being excluded by Matthew's family. Years later, after a long life together, my husband passed away. Now I'm truly all alone. My loneliness only deepened from then on. Even so, there was one thing that gave me solace. I taught Natalie how to make video calls. From now on, we'll try to have Natalie call you Mom as much as possible. Matthew said this, concerned about my loneliness.
Grandma, how are you? I can swim a little bit in the pool now. Is that so? That's great, Natalie. And recently, my dad took me to the amusement park. That's wonderful, Natalie. Next time, Grandma will take you somewhere fun. Is there anywhere you'd like to go?
I wanted to chat with Natalie for hours, but if the call got too long, Victoria would become angry.
Kara, how long are you going to keep talking? It's really bothersome.
Victoria, looking like a demon, would appear behind Natalie and forcefully end the call. Still, Natalie would sneakily make video calls to me when Victoria was out shopping, which made me very happy. One day, when video calls with Natalie had become a part of my daily routine. Kara, please help me. Suddenly, I received a call from Victoria, crying and asking for my help. I was shocked by the suddenness of it all.
Victoria? What's wrong?
Victoria, with a trembling voice but clear enough for me to hear, said, Actually, we're having financial troubles.
Financial troubles? What do you mean?
Matthew works for one of the top trading companies in the country. And Victoria works as well, so under normal circumstances, it would be unlikely for them to face financial difficulties. Victoria took a deep breath and explained, Actually, Matthew's income has significantly decreased for the past few months.
What? His income decreased? Did he get involved in some kind of scandal at work?
It's not that. It seems the company itself is in a precarious situation, and as a result, Matthew's income has been reduced.
I see. That's tough.
Yes, it is. At first, we were managing with my salary, but now it looks like Matthew's income will decrease even further.
Are you guys managing all right?
We're barely getting by. And Natalie will be starting elementary school next year. At this rate, we won't even be able to buy her a backpack.
Poor Natalie.
That's why I have a favor to ask of you, Kara. You need money, right? I understand. How much should I transfer? I'm sorry to ask this, Kara. Could you lend me about $200? I'll pay you back as soon as possible. You can pay me back whenever. Seeing Natalie happy is more than enough joy for me. After hanging up, I rushed to the bank and transferred $200. Thank you so much, Kara. I really appreciate it. Please forgive my past rudeness. Victoria repeated her thanks, with tears in her eyes. It's all right. Don't cry, Victoria.
Also, please keep this a secret from Matthew. He would be hurt if he knew I turned to you for help. He's already down because his salary was reduced.
Understood. I think that's for the best too. Thank you, Victoria. Victoria's attitude, considering Matthew's feelings despite their difficult situation, warmed my heart. Even as I continued to enjoy regular video calls with Matthew and Natalie, I kept my promise to Victoria and avoided any mention of financial matters. About half a month later, Victoria called again. "I'm sorry to bother you again, Kara, but we desperately need money again. Natalie's textbooks and reference books are surprisingly expensive."
Understood. Don't worry, you can always rely on me.
"Could you please lend us about $500?
All right. $500, then?
Another half-month passed. "I'm sorry to ask again, Kara. This time, the clothes I want to buy for Natalie are so expensive. I'm worried she might be teased by her friends if she only has cheap, second-hand clothes."
I understand how you feel. So, how much do you need this time?
"Well, if you could transfer about $1,000, that would really help."
$1,000? That's quite a lot, isn't it?
While wondering if children's clothes could really cost that much, I told myself.
It's all for Natalie's sake.
And so, I transferred the requested $1,000. However, feeling uneasy about the increasing amounts being asked for, I subtly asked Matthew.
It's all good. There's nothing for you to worry about, Mom. I'll be getting a bonus soon anyway. Is that so? You're not overextending, are you?
Matthew laughed it off.
My company is a top trading firm. We can certainly afford what's needed for our child's school entry.
Seeing Matthew act like that only increased my worries.
That child! Maybe he's just putting on a brave face, not wanting to worry his mother.
The requests for money from Victoria continued after that. Then one day, during a video call, Matthew said, "Mom, I sent a Thanksgiving gift your way, so it should arrive sometime today." Hearing Matthew's usual lively voice made me feel somewhat conflicted.
Thank you, as always. But are you sure it's all right?
Matthew laughed heartily.
It's a yearly tradition, isn't it? What's with the formalities all of a sudden? You've been acting strange lately, Mom. Well, it's just that prices seem to be going up recently. Sure, prices have gone up, but it's not like I'm struggling to the point where I can't send gifts to Mom. You don't need to worry about that. If you say so. I just hope it's really all right.
As long as I could see Matthew's face, he didn't seem to be in serious trouble, but he might just be putting on a brave face for my sake.
Natalie just got home. Let her take over, it's a special occasion.
Then, Natalie's smiling face filled the monitor. "Grandma? Did you get the gift?"
Not yet. I'm looking forward to it. I picked it out myself. I'm sure you'll love it, Grandma.
Hearing Natalie's cheerful and adorable voice, the uneasy feelings in my heart were instantly swept away.
Seeing your smile makes me so happy. Thank you always. I love you so much, Grandma.
After the video call with Natalie ended, about 10 minutes later, the delivery arrived. Expecting a hefty package, I watched the delivery person approach, but they moved surprisingly lightly. "I have a delivery for you."
You must be quite strong.
I laughed, impressed, but the delivery person looked surprised.
Oh, no, not at all. Could you please sign here?
Receiving the package, I tilted my head in confusion. True to the delivery person's words, the package was light. Just to be sure, I checked the sender's information, and there was no mistake. It was indeed Matthew's name and address.
What's this about?
I murmured with a furrowed brow, and the delivery person looked worried.
Is there something? Oh, no. Sorry, it's just me talking to myself.
I laughed it off, and the delivery person felt relieved.
Thank you very much,
the delivery person said before heading back to the truck. I brought the light package inside and opened it.
What is this?
Inside the box was just one dirty, used towel. Beneath it was a cute envelope decorated with anime characters. Opening the envelope, I found a note with messy, hard-to-read handwriting that said, "Grandma, thank you for everything." In the corner of the letter was written Natalie.
Is this it?
It was abnormal to send just a worn-out towel, especially if they were struggling with money. If that was the intention, Matthew wouldn't have made a video call acting as usual. He must have been very confident about the package he sent. Also, the letter from Natalie felt off. I remembered Natalie showing me her name written neatly over a video call, which she had just learned, but this handwriting was barely legible.
Did Natalie really write this letter?
I immediately called Matthew's house.
Grandma? Did you get the package? Are you happy?
Natalie said in the same cheerful tone as before.
Thank you for the gift. Is your dad there by any chance?
Yes, he is.
Dad. Grandma is calling.
After a few seconds, Matthew came on the line.
So, you got the package. That's great.
I have something I need to ask you.
What's wrong? You sound so serious.
Matthew seemed completely clueless as to why my voice was filled with concern. Are you sure about the contents of the gift you sent me? Is that really all there was supposed to be?
What do you mean? Were you not satisfied? Or should we have chosen a different product?
There was no hint of evasion in Matthew's voice. I opened the package, and all that was inside was a worn-out towel and a letter from Natalie. Then, from the other end of the phone, Matthew said,
A worn-out towel? What do you mean by a worn-out towel?
But that's all that arrived here.
Could it be someone's prank? Are you sure the sender was me?
There's no mistake. I checked the sender's information over and over, and it was definitely from you.
That can't be right. What I sent was a boxed set of cooking oils. Natalie chooses it every year. That's what I sent this year too.
Is that so?
Absolutely. Why would I send my mom a worn-out towel? And Natalie didn't write a letter, she drew a portrait of you.
A portrait? By Natalie?
Yes. She worked hard on it, wanting to make her grandma happy. I saw her put it in the box myself, so there's no mistake.
Then how was the package sent?
I'm not sure. Victoria probably called the courier service to send it from our home.
Were you at home at that time?
I had to leave suddenly for work, so I don't know what happened after that. Maybe Victoria knows something.
Doubts about Victoria began to grow in my mind.
I have something I want to ask you.
I braced myself and asked the question I had been hesitant to ask until now.
Is it true that your salary at work has been reduced recently?
Mom, what are you talking about? That's not true at all. Matthew burst into laughter. It didn't seem like he was avoiding the question.
Far from being reduced, my salary actually increased because I was promoted to section chief. You were promoted? Is that true? Absolutely. Do you think I would lie to you, Mom? Who told you my salary was reduced? That's completely false.
So, the stories about your family struggling financially are entirely untrue? Can I believe that?
You're persistent. As I've said before, I was promoted to section chief, my salary is higher than before, and I'm more than capable of supporting my family.
I'm relieved to hear that. I felt relieved, and at the same time, my suspicion towards Victoria turned into conviction.
Then why would Victoria say such things?
What happened with Victoria? I revealed everything to Matthew without holding back, explaining how Victoria had been asking me for money, citing financial struggles. After hearing everything, Matthew, with a trembling voice, said,
"Is that really true?"
"Everything is true. She told me your salary was cut, making life difficult, and that you couldn't afford to buy Natalie's backpack or textbooks. She kept asking me for money."
"Don't respond to her demands anymore. I'll talk to her."
Matthew ended the call after that. However, days passed without any word from Matthew.
I wonder if he managed to talk things out with Victoria.
I waited anxiously for a report from Matthew. Then one day, I received a call from unexpected people. "Kara? This is Hilda, Victoria's mother. It's been a while."
"Hello. Yes, it's been since Matthew and Victoria's wedding. Long time no speak."
I responded with humility, thinking that after Matthew had a talk with Victoria, her mother was calling to apologize. But Hilda, far from being humble, seemed rather intimidating to me.
"You're quite the terrible mother-in-law." What are you referring to?" "Playing dumb won't help. I've heard everything from Victoria." I really don't understand what you're talking about."
Hilda sighed deeply over the phone.
"You've been exploiting your position as the mother-in-law to demand large sums of money from Victoria every month." "Me demanding money from Victoria? That's a lie. I've done no such thing."
I hurriedly denied it. However, Hilda didn't listen to my rebuttal. "Victoria has never lied to me. She must have been suffering in silence, unable to confide in anyone. She suddenly returned to our home 7 days ago and has been locked in her room ever since. Poor thing."
"It's the other way around. I'm the one who's been asked for money." "You still intend to hurt Victoria at this point?" "It can't be helped. I'll switch to Kenneth now."
It seemed he was right there next to her. Now, Victoria's father Kenneth came on the line.
"It seems you're determined to make Victoria out to be the villain, but I trust Victoria." "But what I'm saying is the truth. If you just ask my son, Matthew, he'll tell you." "I can't trust that, Matthew."
Kenneth lashed out with anger.
"I've heard it from Victoria. Isn't Matthew involved with another woman despite having a family? And Victoria feels like she's being treated as nothing more than a housekeeper, not recognized as a wife, crying to us about it. That must be some misunderstanding. Matthew would never." "It's true. Victoria never lies to us. So, it must be you and your side who are lying."
All right. I'll speak with Matthew and see what we can do moving forward based on that. He'll probably just deny everything." Kenneth scoffed.
"No matter what excuses you and your son come up with, we're consulting with a top lawyer. We're having him come over next weekend. This is quite troubling."
The voice switched back to Hilda.
"No matter how much you fuss or scream now, we'll proceed with the divorce. Of course, Victoria will have custody of Natalie. Please, don't decide this all on your own." "Of course we will. After all the terrible things you've done to Victoria, we can't possibly let Natalie see you. We'll sever all ties with you for Natalie's future."
With that, Hilda unilaterally ended the call. Not being able to see Natalie. Without dwelling on the matter, I immediately called Matthew to tell him what Victoria's parents had said. Then Matthew said in a surprisingly calm tone,
"Next weekend, huh? All right, I understand. I'll meet with Victoria's family at their house to discuss."
He answered calmly. The promised weekend arrived, and Matthew, Natalie, and I went to Victoria's family home. As we were ushered into the living room, Kenneth crossed his arms and glared at us.
Bold of you to show up so nonchalantly.
He sneered at us in a demeaning way. Victoria, trying to hide her face from her parents with her hand, gave me a look as if to say, "Serves you right."
It's been a while, Victoria.
I bit my lower lip, holding back my anger as I spoke.
Natalie, Grandma and the others are going to have an important talk now, so why don't you play in the next room? Okay. I understand.
After ensuring Natalie had moved to the next room, the lawyer hired by Victoria's parents began to speak. "Shall we begin then?" Suddenly, Hilda burst out. "We cannot contain our anger towards you and your son for what you've done. Kara, taking advantage of her position as the mother-in-law, demanded a high monthly allowance from Victoria, not to mention being betrayed by her own son, Matthew." Hilda began to cry, and Kenneth gently stroked her shoulder.
We demand a heartfelt apology from Kara to Victoria, full repayment of the money taken from her, compensation for the distress, and from Matthew, compensation for the hurt caused by his infidelity, a divorce from Victoria, and child support for Natalie.
I couldn't just accept their demands and immediately attempted to counter.
Everything you've said is baseless. Therefore, we cannot comply with any of your demands.
Then show us the proof, Hilda said with a triumphant smile. I took out the account transaction history from my bag. "Here's your proof."
Contrary to the claim that I demanded money from Victoria, it was actually me who sent money to her. You can see for yourself in this transaction history.
The lawyer whispered with Victoria's parents.
What about the affair Matthew is accused of?
Matthew shook his head. I completely deny any affair, but unfortunately, there's no way to prove that. Victoria smirked at this. But then, Matthew smirked back.
However, I do have ample evidence of Victoria's affair.
His voice was filled with confidence, and Victoria and her parents looked shocked.
This is the transaction history from the account managing our family's finances,
Matthew prefaced. As you can see here. Every month from my mom to Victoria.
And then the same amount of money from Victoria to an unknown man's account. Indeed, the amounts match exactly.
The lawyer nodded. Then Victoria said in a panic.
This must be some fabrication you and Kara cooked up together.
She cried out exaggeratedly. But seeing no tears fall as she bowed her head, I immediately knew it was fake crying. Matthew continued. A few days ago, I hired a private investigator to look into Victoria's activities. And recently, I received their report. Saying this, Matthew placed a large brown envelope on the table and spread out the documents it contained. The documents detailed Victoria's secret meetings with a younger man and their actions, meticulously recorded. As evidence, there are also dozens of photos attached. Also, it appears these secret meetings continued even after Victoria secluded herself here. Were you, her parents, not aware? Victoria's parents were left speechless, unable to counter.
With this much evidence, it's hard not to suspect Victoria's infidelity,
the lawyer said with a sigh. Upon receiving the investigator's report, I managed to speak with the man in the photos. He initially denied everything, but after seeing the evidence, he quickly admitted to the relationship. That's a violation of privacy. Victoria cried out in protest. But Matthew's report was relentless.
This man is currently unemployed, a freeloader who depends on women for living expenses. It seems Victoria is not the only woman he's involved with. Victoria! Is this true?
It's all lies.
They're making it all up.
Matthew brushed off Victoria's protest.
Initially, Victoria used our family's living expenses to send money to this man and buy him expensive gifts. As she was compared to other women, her actions escalated. Unable to cover it with just our living expenses, she resorted to deceiving my mom. What do you have to say for yourself, Victoria? Answer clearly. Shut up. Everything they said is true. I admit to everything.
Victoria yelled, admitting to all the facts.
The money I got from deceiving Kara was sent directly to that man's account.
In contrast to Victoria's panic, Matthew remained composed.
Actually, I've also hired a lawyer, and we're moving forward with a divorce and seeking compensation.
Hearing this, Victoria's parents panicked.
Matthew, let's retract that divorce talk. Let's forget about the divorce. It would ruin our reputation too much. You don't really want to divorce Victoria, do you?
Exactly. What Victoria did is inexcusable. We understand that. But what about Natalie? What happens to her if her parents divorce over adult issues?
Kenneth, Hilda. Do you know how I came to realize Victoria's infidelity?
Matthew asked. Victoria's parents looked at each other, but it seemed they couldn't find a clear answer.
Natalie, come here.
At Matthew's call, Natalie, who had been playing next door.
What? Dad?
Came running over.
Tell everyone here about what you told Dad before.
Then, looking up at Victoria, Natalie said, After Dad and I go to bed, Mom always goes out somewhere.
And when I secretly watched from the window, I saw her leaving in a car with a man Dad doesn't know. Stop it, Natalie! I hate Mom. She's always on the phone when I try to talk to her and never takes me anywhere fun. She didn't even make a lunch for my preschool sports day.
And with clear determination, Natalie declared,
I don't need a mom like that. I love Dad and Grandma. I want to live with Dad and them. That's how it is. You neglected your own child to fool around with another man. Someone like that can't be trusted with our child. I'll take care of Natalie. We're getting a divorce.
Matthew stated firmly. Despite Victoria and her parents' refusal to agree to the divorce, the evidence of infidelity was overwhelming, and the divorce between Matthew and Victoria was eventually finalized. It turned out Victoria was the one who had swapped the real Thanksgiving gift with a box containing an old towel.
It's because Natalie was making those video calls with that old woman. I couldn't have time for calls with him.
It was annoying. Victoria's motive involved the presence of her affair partner.
Victoria, are you even a mother to your child?
I sighed deeply in disbelief.
Both you and that man will pay compensation. It's only fair, as you've deceived not just me but also Mom and Natalie.
Wait, please. He doesn't work. Life is already hard enough.
You reap what you sow. Make sure you work and pay up.
Matthew resolutely pushed Victoria away, ensuring she and her affair partner paid the compensation in full. Afterwards, Matthew and Natalie moved into my house.
Yay! Now I can see Grandma every day.
Natalie was overjoyed. It seemed that Matthew had managed to transfer within the same company he was working for. After I explained the situation, my boss was understanding. Thankfully, it all worked out. Suddenly, our home became much livelier, and I started cooking with even more enthusiasm.
Today, Nathan in my class said he likes me. Is that so? That's great. You're popular at school because you're so cute, Natalie. Hey! Like, as in... She's still in elementary school. Isn't that too early for this kind of thing? Why are you so flustered? Be a bit more steady as a father.
As I chided him, Natalie laughed loudly. Regardless, Natalie, now in elementary school, quickly made new friends and seemed to be enjoying her days, which reassured me.
Gathering around the table as a family like this, spending quality time together, it's really something special.
I vowed to protect Natalie's smile.
Can't be serious. What's going on here?
Trembling, Robert met my steady gaze as I calmly stated, "I don't know. But since you mentioned divorce, I'll proceed with it. Also, I'll discuss this with your parents. They'll surely understand the truth. My name is Nancy. I'm 28 years old. I work for a company that deals in household goods in the HR department. I met Robert at a drinking party through a friend. Robert runs a tech business with his parents. I decided to marry him because his carefree nature was a comfort to me, working in an organizational setting. Even after marriage, I got along well with Robert, but his family was a constant source of worry. His parents believed that a woman should join her husband's family after marriage, a view that clashed with my desire to continue working. Every time we met, they would make snide remarks.
Nancy, you're still working? It's shameful for a woman to be out and about. Quit your job and help out as Robert's wife.
Jennifer, my mother-in-law, would often summon me to say these things. Dodging her was one thing, but spending my precious days off dealing with her was a significant stress. I enjoy my job, recently tasked with the selection of new hires. I look forward to building my career. The company culture is positive, and while work has its challenges, I don't face unpleasantness. It's not just about the income. I want to continue working.
Why don't you say something to Robert?
When Jennifer tried to involve him, Robert, albeit vaguely, respected my wishes. If Nancy wants to work, then let her. Dad's still healthy, and it's not like I'm taking over immediately. Let her have her freedom at home. Hearing Robert's words, Jennifer narrowed her eyes in irritation and responded angrily.
You've become quite the outspoken son. Living together is obviously better. God knows what Nancy has told you.
Robert sighed in annoyance and retorted, "Even if she helped, it's not like our sales would suddenly skyrocket. Having her work increases our income, which is more helpful." Hearing this, I couldn't deny feeling a bit disappointed, wishing for more affectionate words. However, I appreciated that he supported the lifestyle I wanted. I decided to overlook my feelings and be thankful to Robert. But as the months, half a year, and then a year went by, things couldn't stay the same. Jennifer relentlessly pressed for cohabitation and for me to quit my job. It seemed her fixation on this was strong, showing no signs of compromise. And, overwhelmed with dissatisfaction to the point of madness, she exclaimed,
"It's absurd you're so obsessed with working outside. What are you after? Men? Yes, that must be it. While married to Robert, you're losing your head over men at work. How disgusting and shameful."
Her baseless accusations and hysteria made calming her down a task, requiring coffee and sweets to manage her mood. Of course, Robert never believed Jennifer's delusions. However, he seemed to grow weary of her frequent outbursts and tantrums, and his support for me waned. "Look, if it calms Mom down, shouldn't we just compromise? Being raged at every time is stressful for you, Nancy. Eventually, I'll take over the business anyway, so quitting and moving in might be quicker than convincing her." Robert mumbled, looking down at the dining table. Finishing his thought, he cradled his head in his hands, sighing deeply. Robert was caught between Jennifer and me, and I could understand his pain. But it shocked me that he had let go of the support he used to give me.
Why? Why would you say that, Robert?
I stopped washing dishes, my voice trembling with tears. "What do you mean, why?" You see how Mom acts. I'm tired of being attacked for continuing our life this way. And you must be too, right? After repeating the same for a year, do you still want to work? Indeed, Jennifer's escalating insults and abuse had pushed me to my limit. But my job was an essential part of my life. I didn't want to give it up. Considering Jennifer's nature, cohabiting could just start a new series of harassments against me.
Yes, but... Robert, you're her son. Can't you talk some sense into her? You said it was beneficial for us if I worked, increasing our income. Don't give in to your mom. There's no guarantee that living together solves everything.
Tears welled up in my eyes, but I clenched my fists, trying to hold back my emotions. I felt betrayed by Robert, mixed with sadness and anger. Then, irritated, Robert slammed the newspaper on the table, stood up abruptly, making a loud noise.
Enough. That's old news. Sticking to the same view won't always work out. Nancy, you're stubborn and selfish. Wait. You can't just say what suits you and flip your stance when it's inconvenient. That's dishonest.
I retorted strongly as Robert tried to leave. Our day ended with such an argument, leaving me exhausted. I was so drained, I barely managed to clean up before I just went to bed for the day. Why did things end up like this? Jennifer was a problem, but what really hurt was how Robert's attitude had changed. If Robert drifted away, I'd be isolated without any help. Feeling utterly alone, with no one on my side, made me feel incredibly vulnerable. After that fight, things were awkward between us, but a few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. After feeling unwell for some days and being urged by coworkers to see a doctor, I discovered I was 2 months pregnant. Robert was happy about the news. He also became more considerate of my condition during the pregnancy. If it's a boy, could he be my successor? If it's a girl, I hope she's as cute as Nancy. You're handling both work and house chores now, but it's an important time, and you shouldn't overdo it. I was touched by his kind words. But then, as if on cue, Robert casually brought up the last thing I wanted to hear. How about taking this chance to quit your job? Working while pregnant must be hard on you, and it's a good opportunity. If we live with my parents, my mom can take care of the house, so you can rest. At that moment, my emotions surged. Had he forgotten all the discussions and fights we've had so far, just like that? To say such a thing so easily, with a smile, no less.
Don't talk nonsense. This isn't a good opportunity. It's as if you're using this baby we were so happy about as an excuse to make me submit to your family's demands. That's not why we decided to have a child, is it? I'm not quitting my job.
As I fired back, Robert looked taken aback, as if he was under pressure.
Calm down. Why are you so angry? Quitting a job because of pregnancy is quite common.
It might be common, but my company has maternity and parental leave policies in place. I plan to take maternity leave, then return to work once things settle down. Plus, if I quit now, I'll lose all the income during the leave. Robert seemed to drift off halfway through my explanation but snapped to attention towards the end. Seemingly hooked by the mention of money.
Oh, so maybe quitting after the parental leave ends could work. Let's just take the leave for now and figure out the rest later.
With a vague, non-committal tone, Robert said this and looked away from me, continuing to watch TV as if nothing had happened. Seeing his profile as he pretended nothing was amiss, I sighed without realizing it. I hadn't noticed before we were married, but I never thought he'd be such a fair-weather, agreeable man. From now on, I need to be firmer. A few months later, I returned to my parents' home to give birth, wanting to be near my family during this time. I wanted nothing to do with my in-laws or Jennifer around the birth. When I told my parents about Jennifer and Robert, they were very worried about me and even angrier at Robert than I was.
People who change their minds like that can't be trusted. You should not stay with him. If this continues, it might be worth considering a divorce.
My mom said, her voice low and firm as she wielded the kitchen knife with more force than usual. Even I, who had directly confronted Robert, felt intimidated by her intensity. Thank you. But Robert isn't a bad person as long as Jennifer and his family aren't involved. Once the baby is born, our life will change, and I want to see how things go for a while. When I said that, Mom sighed worriedly.
Nancy, it's good that you're patient, but you tend to keep too much to yourself. If it becomes too much, promise me you'll tell us right away, okay?
Yeah, I understand. Feeling Mom's strong love, a few months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. We named her Sarah. I continued to live at my parents' house, not wanting to return to a place close to my in-laws, and eventually, after a year, I found a childcare center and planned to return to work. Though Robert did visit to see Sarah from time to time, we never discussed living together or quitting my job again. Actually, both of us seemed to avoid the topic. Mom didn't show her anger in front of me, but quietly pressured Robert.
Now that the family is growing with the birth of our child, please make sure to support Nancy and Sarah properly. Thank you.
Back in the house with Robert, nothing had changed with him or Jennifer. Jennifer would barge into our house to see her granddaughter, criticizing.
How shameful! A woman who has a child and still insists on working instead of living with her husband's family has no shame.
And Robert, in his way, would dismiss everything with,
let's just see how things go. Parenting comes with its challenges.
2 years flew by. Sarah grew rapidly, now walking freely and starting to talk. I continued to work part-time while Sarah was in childcare, without moving in with my in-laws. Robert had become so accustomed to Jennifer's tirades and my persuasions that he would ignore our arguments, focusing on the TV. I had no expectations from Robert anymore. I hoped that someday, I could convince them on my own terms. One day, Sarah became ill. She was covered in red rashes that seemed to cause her pain or itchiness, making her cry in discomfort. Realizing the severity, I immediately took time off work and rushed Sarah to the hospital. The doctor suggested a blood test as a precaution. And when I mentioned we hadn't determined her blood type yet, they included it in the tests. I thought it was unnecessary, but agreed since the doctor recommended it. The diagnosis revealed that the rashes were due to atopic dermatitis, and she was prescribed specific medication for it. It was a relief to understand the inflammation and how to treat it. But the real issue arose from the blood test results. I am O-type, and so is Robert. Logically, our child should also be O-type. My reluctance for the blood type test was because it seemed obvious and unnecessary. Yet, the result puzzled me. Feeling an inexplicable chill, I returned home and seriously brought up the issue with Robert, discussing Sarah's atopy before showing him the blood type results.
Isn't it strange that both of us are O-type, but Sarah is a type?
As I hesitantly asked, Robert's complexion changed rapidly, and he shouted in anger.
This means divorce! Nancy, you must have been cheating at work!
Shocked by his terrifying aggression, I trembled.
Wait, this is just a report. It could be a mistake in the test results. No way. You've been having children with another man. Mom said you were obsessed with work because you had a man on the side, and she was right. Pretending to be a career woman, freely mingling with men. What a philanderer.
Robert hurled insults at me with a face red with rage. Amidst the loud and violent shouting, I felt a profound disgust and instinctively closed my eyes. It was heartbreaking to be so misunderstood, and the vile language he used was shocking.
Stop it! Don't talk like that. I would never cheat. You know I've been commuting between work and home every day, don't you? Don't you trust your own wife? Trust? There's no trust here. The test results say it all.
Robert screamed, violently slapping the paper with the test results. It seemed we could no longer communicate. I had completely misjudged my choice of partner. I deeply felt the mistake in my choice.
I won't raise someone else's child. I don't even want to see the face of a child born to such a despicable woman. Get out of this house immediately, both of you. And since you cheated, expect a claim for compensation in the divorce court.
Robert's yelling filled the house, waking Sarah in the next room, who started crying. The rash hadn't even settled down yet. Imagine how uncomfortable she must feel. While I was heartbroken thinking about Sarah, Robert forcefully pushed our belongings at us, trying to throw us out on the spot. In a panic, I grabbed our essentials and the medication prescribed by the hospital. Then, at the doorstep, I made one last plea to Robert.
Please listen. It's too baffling not to investigate. If it bothers you so much, let's do a DNA test.
Hearing this, Robert looked down on me with disdain, jetting out his chin.
Fine, do it. It'll just prove your infidelity. Go ahead and hang yourself with your actions.
Once convinced, Robert, showing no willingness to bend, happily offered his hair for the test. Suddenly expelled from the house, we headed to my parents' home, a 2-hour bus ride away. By the time we arrived, I was exhausted. My mom was shocked to see us and furious after hearing the story.
It's just too much. Kicking you out on such one-sided assumptions is crazy. Sure, the blood test results are strange, but we should be working together as a couple to figure this out. You should send such a husband back to his parents, Mom said firmly.
She then tenderly applied medication to Sarah, who was still suffering from the rash, comforting her. It hurts, doesn't it? And it was scary. Sarah, you haven't done anything wrong. I apologized to my workplace and took a leave, relying on my parents' support to care for Sarah. Simultaneously, I sent Robert's hair for DNA testing, awaiting the outcome. Since I hadn't cheated, the blood type discrepancy was baffling. Although I didn't want to think about it, even if Robert had cheated, the child wouldn't have been born to the other woman, so this situation wouldn't make sense. After just over 2 weeks, the DNA test results came in. Together with Mom, I slowly opened the envelope. Inside, the information was surprising. Indeed, Sarah was without a doubt our child. And it also confirmed that I am O-type. However, it turned out Robert's blood type was actually A. I went back to the house we had been expelled from to share this fact. Anticipating conflict, I left Sarah with Mom. What are you doing here? You're the worst. Robert greeted me coldly, but I calmly showed him the test results. His eyes widened slowly as he looked at the paper, and his angry brows fell into a mix of confusion and worry. It can't be. How is this possible? Robert had always said he was O-type. Of course, he wouldn't lie about something like that, and he had always believed it to be true. I looked straight at Robert, who was shaking, and said calmly, "Let's talk about this with your parents. The truth will surely come out." Surprisingly, Robert nodded. He had mentioned before that both his parents were also O-type, which might not be the truth. The tension and fear of uncovering secrets about his birth made Robert shrink. He was a completely different person from when he had hurled insults at me. When we went to his parents' house, It seemed Robert had already discussed Sarah's blood type and my alleged infidelity, and Jennifer's gaze was icy cold towards me. "Why are you with that promiscuous woman?" Jennifer expressed her disgust. To her, Robert showed the DNA test results with trembling hands.
"We shouldn't be talking about this. Look at this. You and Dad said my blood type was O, didn't you? Why does it say A here?"
Jennifer slowly took it, scrutinizing the paper with a strained expression. Then, she led us to a back room and seated us on a couch. Sitting opposite us, Jennifer was silent, her demeanor formal. It seemed she had something to say, but she hesitated, biting her lip and looking down.
"Mom, why are you silent? Is there a reason? You're O-type, Dad's O-type, so I should be O-type too, right?"
Robert, trying to appear strong, was clearly anxious, his hands trembling under the table. "Yes, but..." Jennifer's face lost all its color, turning ashen like a doll's. She winced painfully, her lips quivering in a purple hue.
"Why won't you tell me? Please, the truth."
Despite noticing Jennifer's distress, Robert persisted in his questioning. After a few seconds of silence, Jennifer sighed quietly and began to speak. "There's something I've kept silent about. Robert, you're not actually the child of your dad and me." I gasped at Jennifer's words.
"What? No way! What does that mean?"
Of course, Robert was greatly shocked by the sudden confession. "Before I married your dad, I had a careless affair with another man. Robert, you are the child from that time." Robert is now 30 years old. The realization that the family he grew up with is falling apart must be a tremendous shock. Robert was already shaking. "Does Dad know about this?" When Robert asked, Jennifer looked pained. That expression alone was answer enough.
"So, you've been hiding this from me and Dad?"
At that point, Robert was so dismayed he seemed almost unable to speak, just staring at Jennifer with a look that was close to tears. Jennifer shed a single tear. "Robert, I truly did care for you as my own, and raised you with all the love a parent could give." Jennifer had an affair shortly after her marriage and conceived a child from that liaison, pretending the child was her husband's and living a lie as a family. She continued to love her son, nonetheless.
"But even hearing that, I can't just accept it. So, was your affair partner A-type? Why hide such a crucial thing?"
Robert, with tears welling up in his eyes, stood up to confront Jennifer. "Probably," Jennifer murmured and then fell silent, looking down. What a revelation. Jennifer's long-kept secret came to light because of Sarah's blood type. Was it fate's cruel play or a divine punishment? At least Sarah was undoubtedly mine and Robert's child, so there was no role for me in this. I decided to watch quietly, holding my breath.
Can such things even happen? I never verified my blood type with a test. I've been healthy since I was a kid and never needed to. I just believed what Mom said about being O-type.
I really am sorry." At that moment, Jennifer humbly responded. Quietly, the door to the room opened.
"I've heard everything."
Standing there was father-in-law Daniel, looking beyond angry, his gaze chillingly cold. Daniel, too, had always been somewhat sarcastic towards me, overshadowed by Jennifer's more overt hostility. His face, usually concerned about his business's future, now betrayed his disappointment in Jennifer for her decades-long deceit.
"Is it true that Robert is not our child?"
Daniel asked Jennifer in a low voice.
Daniel. You were listening?"
Caught off guard by the revelation that her secret conversation was overheard, Jennifer began to panic. While Jennifer scrambled for excuses, Daniel found the test results and scrutinized them.
To have such an indecent relationship with another man. And you've been deceiving me with it until this age.
Daniel's calm facade shattered instantly. He turned red with anger, furiously berating Jennifer.
Don't say it like that. That's so unfair. Robert is our precious son. Haven't we raised him with care all these years? Yes, that's right. Deceived by you, I've cared for another man's child as my own for 30 years.
With a loud bang, Daniel slammed the test results on the table. At his outburst, both Robert and I flinched. Unable to withstand Daniel's fury, Jennifer stood up to argue back.
What's the use of getting angry now? I haven't been in touch with that man anymore, and it's been 30 years. It should be statute barred by now, shouldn't it? There's no statute on this. I never imagined you to be such a promiscuous woman. And the evidence is still standing right here.
Daniel yelled, pointing at Robert. Caught in the crossfire of his parents' argument, Robert was too stunned to respond.
Given this revelation, I can no longer stay married to Jennifer. We're getting a divorce. And you, Robert. If you're not my son, then don't ever come back to our home again.
Wait, what? That can't be true. Amidst the escalating argument between the in-laws, Robert found himself thrown out of the house. Seemingly irrelevant to their dispute, I also left with him, and we ended up discussing our divorce over a meal at a nearby family restaurant.
Look, I get it now. You didn't cheat. It was all a misunderstanding. Sarah is definitely our child, so let's cancel the divorce. We can go back to living in that house, right?
True to his opportunistic nature, my husband now comes with a convenient proposal. It's surprising, really. Feeling disillusioned, I responded indifferently. No way.
While the misunderstanding has been cleared, the words you said can't be taken back. The way you spoke to me was unforgivable, not to mention calling Sarah the worst things. I can't stay married to someone who can speak so lightly of us.
The divorce will proceed.
Wait, don't talk like that.
As Robert tried to stop me, I gave him a cold smile. Maybe it's for the best, Robert. You wanted a wife who doesn't insist on working or disagreeing with the house, didn't you? You used to stand up for me, but gradually, you just followed Jennifer's lead. I don't need a husband who won't support me. Let's settle the rest through lawyers. Goodbye. I stood up quickly, leaving a bewildered Robert behind in the bustling family restaurant. As I boarded the bus again to fetch Sarah from my parents' house, Robert returned to his parental home only to find that, just as Daniel had said, he was not allowed inside, and of course, he was also fired from the family business. As expected, I received a message stating that the succession plans were now void. I ignored the message and immediately started looking for a law firm to proceed with the claim for compensation in the divorce proceedings. Robert's actions qualified as emotional harassment, enabling me to claim $20,000 in divorce compensation. I received complaints from Robert, stating he was jobless and couldn't pay, but I maintained a firm stance that the amount could not be reduced. Robert had not saved any money, assuming he would inherit the family business and become its president. I knew all too well that he had squandered any extra earnings on alcohol and gambling. Moreover, maintaining the apartment we had lived in would likely be impossible. On the other hand, after being kicked out of her home at 60 due to her affair, Jennifer managed to contact Brian, her past lover, seemingly intending to flee to him. Robert got in touch with Jennifer, and they decided to meet and head to Brian's home together, who was believed to be Robert's biological father. Brian was shocked and greatly bewildered when a woman from his past and an unexpected son suddenly appeared after 30 years. He tried to deny the past, claiming he couldn't remember such a thing and suggesting they might be mistaken. Jennifer insisted on a DNA test, offering to cover the costs. Furthermore, their argument at the doorstep was discovered by Brian's wife, who lives in the same house, leading to the three being interrogated about what was happening. Shockingly, at that time 30 years ago, Brian was already married, and his affair was exposed to his wife, leading to a divorce being thrust upon him in front of Jennifer and Robert. After my fight with Robert came Jennifer and Daniel's argument. And finally, the conflict between Brian and his wife ensued. One dramatic scene led to another, creating a commotion everywhere. During all this, I rented a new room close to my parents' house and started living there with Sarah. I never wanted to return to the apartment I shared with Robert, nor did I want to indefinitely rely on my parents. Afterwards, Mom said,
Robert was odd, and so was his family. Divorcing was the right decision. Let's take good care of Sarah together.
She encouraged me warmly. Her occasional help has been invaluable. I apologized to my company for the leave, briefly explained the situation, and requested a transfer to a branch that was commutable from my new home. My previous performance was appreciated, and though the company regretted my departure, my transfer was approved, and I was able to return to work successfully. As I was starting this new life, Mom arrived at my house looking upset.
Can I talk to you?
It seemed she wasn't angry with me, so I let her in to listen.
Can you believe Robert came to our house? Unbelievable.
Mom said this as she sipped the tea I had made, her eyebrows raised in disbelief. I felt a sense of disgust at Robert's pathetic behavior and sorry for the inconvenience caused to my parents.
He said he couldn't pay child support because he was jobless and asked for help, relying on Nancy. When I told him you had started a new life, he begged us for money with a terrible look on his face. It was so bad, we had to kick him out right away.
Mom recounted, finishing her tea feeling relieved. I'm sorry for causing trouble, Mom. When I apologized, Mom gave me a generous smile.
It's okay, it's all in the past. I've already warned him I'll call the police if he shows up again, so he won't bother us anymore. Nancy, you need to move on and focus on yourself and Sarah.
Mom said this and patted my shoulder. Encouraged by Mom's warmth, I couldn't help but tear up. By the way, Mom is definitely type O. After that, I received messages and voicemails from Robert almost daily. It seems that Robert, Jennifer, and Brian, all ousted from their respective homes, ended up living together out of convenience. Seeing their messages, I couldn't help but laugh at the bizarre combination. However, it's impossible for such a tumultuous group to live together harmoniously. As expected, it seems none of them are getting along well. They turned to me for help, but Mom sent them packing, audaciously asking for assistance. I ignored everything, blocking Robert's account and phone number. Robert's persistence didn't end there. He even showed up at my new workplace. But he never got to confront me. Having shared my fears about being stalked, the company was prepared. As soon as the surveillance cameras caught Robert, alarms sounded throughout the building. Startled by the alarm and the approaching security guards, Robert fled, a scene I watched from the safety of an internal monitor. My colleagues, having witnessed Robert's obsession, sympathized with me and promised to keep him away. Shortly after, an unexpected visitor arrived at my company. Jennifer, supposedly unrelated to me now. Unfortunately, she caught me in the hallway during my lunch break.
I finally found you. Nancy, you need to take responsibility for once.
Jennifer's angry voice echoed in the office hallway. Passing employees looked on worriedly as Jennifer, visibly more haggard and pale, began ranting at me. What? Why are you here at my office all of a sudden? I asked, bewildered. As I was bewildered, Jennifer, who had become significantly more haggard and pale-faced than before, yelled in a shrill voice.
It's obvious, isn't it? If you hadn't investigated the blood type. If there hadn't been a DNA test, none of this would have happened. Your meddling has ruined everything I've built up. Everything is a mess now.
Despite being responsible for her affair and keeping silent about the child she bore from it for over 30 years, Jennifer tried to forcibly shift the blame onto me. Just as Jennifer attempted to grab me, security personnel who had rushed over restrained her. Immediately after, the situation escalated to the point where the police were called. For some reason, Robert was there too, apparently watching from a hiding spot, and it seems they both ended up being interrogated by the police. I wish they would just stop. My new life has begun, and I've completely severed ties with Robert through divorce. Begging for a peaceful life, I went home, only to face a similar situation at work the next day. Just like the day before, someone had infiltrated the office and was waiting in the hallway. This time, it was Daniel who had come. I had never shared my workplace details with him, leaving me puzzled and slightly terrified about how he found me. As our eyes met, Daniel, with a frivolous smile, said,
"Well, I know we've caused a lot of trouble in the past. Now that Jennifer and I are separated and Robert's been kicked out, we're actually short-staffed. Considering you were Robert's wife, why not help out at the company as an employee?"
"Don't be absurd. I was the wife of Robert, whom you disowned. I have nothing to do with you now. If you're headhunting, please look elsewhere," I responded calmly. At that, Daniel's demeanor shifted from smug to menacing as he aggressively confronted me.
"What? You're talking back to me? When you were married to Robert, it was all about not quitting your job and not living together, just doing whatever you wanted. Now, when I'm offering to start over and hire you, you're saying no? The nerve of women these days, all so insolent, it's infuriating."
Daniel's rant continued unabashedly until security and the police arrived, much like when Jennifer had appeared, and took him away. With the departure of all three related parties from my workplace, the harrowing days of their uninvited visits came to an end, leaving me relieved and surrounded by concerned colleagues. Finally, peace of mind seems achievable as I dedicate myself more fully to my work. In the aftermath for Robert's family, it appears Daniel employed the reasoning he shared with me, despite the divorce, considering me still the ex-wife of his son, to propose a solution for their dire need of manpower in his business. Robert and Jennifer, facing dilemmas of shelter and financial insecurity, hesitantly accepted the offer of work and a place to stay. However, a family once fragmented by deceit and betrayal couldn't possibly reconcile to function harmoniously. Indeed, neither their domestic nor professional endeavors flourished, leading to daily disputes that resonated throughout the neighborhood, making them pariahs in their community. Nonetheless, they have consistently fulfilled the obligation of the divorce settlement payments. Payments are being monitored through a lawyer, ensuring that any interruption prompts immediate reminders for continuation. Given their current predicament, making divorce settlement payments likely compromises their living standards, leading to reluctant borrowing to make ends meet. Consequently, repaying this debt further exacerbates their financial distress. Caught in a vicious cycle, Robert appears to be exploited for cheap labor at Daniel's company. On my end, life has taken a positive turn. Bringing valuable expertise from my tenure at the headquarters, I've become an asset in my new role. Praised for efficiency and accuracy, I've quickly earned trust and respect from colleagues. Talks of salary increments and promotions are already on the horizon, signaling expectations for my continued excellence. The people here are kind and upbeat, making this a workplace where I wish to stay indefinitely. Child-rearing is progressing smoothly. During the day, Sarah attends a childcare center, and sometimes with mom's assistance, she has grown significantly. Regular hospital visits have gradually improved her atopic dermatitis, bringing some peace of mind. Her earnest stories about her day at the childcare center are irresistibly adorable. Her third birthday is approaching, and Mom and I are discussing how to celebrate it. Though she might not remember it, we want to give her a beautiful, delightful celebration. Mom has recently been busy knitting sweaters for Sarah, pouring her love into every stitch.
I'm going to knit the cutest sweater in the world, so get excited,
she declared with enthusiasm in front of me. As for me, I've taken up baking, whipping up daily snacks while also preparing to make Sarah's birthday cake from scratch. Strawberry cake is nice, but how about an apple pie? What do you think, Sarah? I asked. Our little girl, after a moment's thought, tilted her head and brightly exclaimed, "Apple pie." Her adorable response brought a spontaneous smile to my face. Life might throw challenges at us as we go along. But whether it's work, parenting, or just dealing with everyday life, I believe in facing everything with a smile, taking one step at a time, and trusting the people around me. As long as Sarah is by our side, I'm confident we can handle anything. I thought it would be a piece of cake. I, being younger, could make him happier, she declared, arriving at the apartment where Mike and I lived a happy life. Standing beside her was Mike, with a grin on his face. To dispel this nightmare, I had to take action. I'm Lucy, a 26-year-old housewife. My husband, Mike, is 28 and works in sales at a printing company. I'm currently working part-time at a bookstore. Before getting married, I did various temp jobs and worked as a temporary government employee. But after marriage, I chose to work part-time. I'm not the most versatile person, so juggling a full-time job and household chores seemed impossible. Part-time work, along with housekeeping, feels just right for me. When Mike and I first met, he was unemployed. He had quit his job within just 6 months of starting at a company right after graduating from college. It was during his job search that he met me. During his job hunt, our paths crossed at the workforce center. I was working there as a temporary employee. Mike was the client I happened to assist at the reception. My first impression of him was that he was extremely friendly and charming. I immediately thought he'd be perfect in sales and recommended a few sales jobs. I remember feeling relieved when one of the jobs I recommended, at a printing company, turned out to be a success for Mike. When he came to report his employment with a beaming smile, I found myself unexpectedly smitten by him. Mike's face is cute. But at the same time he's tall, and the unexpected contrast seemed wonderful. He came to report his job acceptance just before lunch break, so as soon as the break started, I looked for Mike and stopped him. I remember it took a lot of courage to do that. Mike was about to leave the workforce center at that moment. I approached him as he seemed to be pondering over something, staring at his mobile phone screen by the entrance. Mike looked surprised when I spoke to him. I think my hands were trembling when I asked if we could exchange contact information. Mike's response was simply, "I'd like that too." I blushed, but so did Mike, his face as red as mine. We exchanged contacts, and that marked the beginning of our relationship. Mike, working in sales at the printing company, and I got married 2 months after we exchanged numbers. Our friends teased us for our whirlwind marriage. But I always thought, if I were to marry, it could only be Mike. When we got married, we bought an apartment as our new home. I thought it was a bold decision at the time, but now I believe it was the right choice. I was living the best marital life with Mike, my beloved, in our comfortable home. The change in our life came about 2 years after our marriage. I think it was around the time when Mike's job began to feel more stable.
"Do you think I'm kind of cute?"
Mike suddenly asked. Considering he never seemed interested in his own appearance, I immediately sensed someone must have mentioned it to him. "Yes, you're kind of cute." "Did someone say that to you?" I asked. Laughing, Mike said it was a comment from a new employee. I thought it was quite inappropriate for someone who had just joined the company to say such a thing.
Mike, not entirely displeased, said, "Cute, huh?"
while looking in the mirror. I told Mike to be more careful since he was being teased by younger people. Following that incident, Mike began to pay more attention to his clothes and skincare. His spending increased, and so did the bills on our credit card. When he came home from work, he would constantly hold on to his mobile phone. I started suspecting infidelity. Once I started thinking that way, it was all downhill from there. I began to doubt everything Mike did. Our good relationship until then perhaps made the backlash stronger. Although Mike appeared more buoyant than before, he didn't seem to hide it from me, which was a bit reassuring. I thought if he had something to hide, he would act suspiciously. But I was being naive. Mike's spending habits were getting worse day by day. I decided to have a serious talk with him during dinner. I told him that we should save money now, as we'll need more when we have kids. Mike didn't seem to grasp the seriousness. I emphasized it even more. Without any evidence of Mike's infidelity, I watched him become increasingly youthful in appearance and lived in frustration. But soon, the situation took a dramatic turn. I was in a hurry one morning to hang the laundry on the balcony before leaving for my part-time job. That's when I noticed someone standing in front of our apartment, looking my way. A woman in her early 20s, it seemed. Moreover, she appeared to be filming me with her mobile phone. For a moment, our eyes met through her mobile phone, and I felt a chill of fear. I quickly went back inside the house from the balcony. Even though I hadn't done anything wrong, my heart was racing. I thought she must be Mike's mistress. Maybe she came to spy on me, the wife. The next day, I was stopped by the owner at the entrance. He warned me about a woman who seemed to be inquiring about me. She was asking how much our apartment cost, whether Mike and I were happily married, and had been gathering information around the apartment. It was the same as being publicly announced that I was being cheated by Mike. Reaching my limit, I finally confronted Mike. "You've been glued to your mobile phone lately. Who are you waiting to hear from?" I asked. Mike responded, "It's just work." I told him about the encounter with the apartment owner, pretending not to know.
"There seems to be a woman snooping around our home. Do you know anything about this?"
Mike's hand, holding his phone, began to tremble slightly. Sweat appeared on his forehead, even though it wasn't hot. Just as I was about to press him further, the intercom rang. I answered it, reluctantly, and there she was, the woman, smiling on the screen. I was momentarily stunned. "She's a client of mine. She has something to discuss with you," Mike said. He unlocked the door and welcomed her in. The woman who appeared at the door seemed younger than I had imagined. Almost like a high school student. She was introduced as an office worker dispatched to Mike's company. She held Mike's hand, smiling broadly, and her lack of common sense startled me. Then she declared, "I'm dating Mike." To me. And then she announced to me. While I stood there, stunned, the two of them looked at each other and laughed. Holding each other's hands. "You're less important to me than she is. I want to start over with Betty," Mike said, sounding like a victim. I felt my blood boil at his words. The two seemed to be reveling in their own tragedy, and Betty was even shedding tears as she looked at me. Mike then hurled cruel words at me. He said our marriage was a mistake, that it was too hasty, and we hadn't thought it through. Finally, he even said he thought it was a mistake to have loved me. He claimed he became his true self thanks to her. His words, like poison, made me feel dizzy. However, I sensed Mike was avoiding a decisive statement. He didn't want to be the one to say divorce. I could feel the two of them waiting for me to bring it up.
"Fine. I don't want anything. Let's get divorced,"
I said, raising my hands in surrender. Mike relaxed his shoulders in relief at my words. Betty looked at Mike with joy. "Thank you. I thought it would be easy since you looked older than Mike described."
It's only natural for someone younger like me to make Mike happier. It's right for you to step aside,"
Betty said, without a hint of malice. Maybe she really didn't mean any harm. But to the one hearing it, those words could only be taken as malicious. I was incredibly irritated. Our marriage was quick, but the divorce proceedings were even quicker. I spent an unbelievable day filing for divorce with Mike's mistress, Betty. Now that the divorce papers are filed, technically, Mike and I are strangers to each other. The buoyant couple apparently reserved a luxury hotel for tonight. I'm alone in the apartment, packing my things. I told Mike I didn't want anything. I didn't ask for any property division, but I decided to claim alimony. No need for child support, as we don't have kids. Though she's paying me alimony, it seems like Mike will end up paying for her share too. Right after filing the divorce papers, as we were parting, Betty said, "Please leave that apartment soon.
Mike and I will be living there, so a middle-aged woman should vacate quickly."
She said it in a sickly sweet voice, arm in arm with Mike. It irritated me greatly, but I kept my composure. Smiling outwardly, I vowed revenge against them in my heart. I left the apartment that I shared with Mike as soon as I packed my belongings. I've left everything else to my lawyer. I made Mike and her sign an agreement not to contact me after the divorce. I almost laughed, remembering how happily they signed it. A month passed, and just when I thought it was about time, my mobile phone rang. It was Mike calling. Knowing he must be panicking, I deliberately took my time answering.
"What? You signed an agreement not to contact me." "I don't want to hear from you now," I said. "What do you mean? $2,000 a month for the apartment? $1.5 thousand for credit repayments? How am I supposed to pay this every month?"
Mike must be holding the credit statement and the apartment payment request right now. I always managed our finances during our marriage. I was in charge of the account into which Mike's salary was deposited. When we decided to buy the apartment, Mike showed no interest in the monthly repayments. How much did he think we needed each month? Mike's take-home pay is about $1.7 thousand. It's not an amount he can afford to pay every month.
"That's why I kept telling you not to waste money,"
I said.
"But we were supposed to be living off my salary. It's impossible with just a part-time job."
Mike was almost crying, in a state of disarray. His life was turned upside down. Indeed, I have a part-time job. But unknown to Mike, I had another job. I've been blogging about my daily life and have continued streaming since before we got married. Mike didn't know, but I've also published a book. I earn more than Mike's salary every month. The part-time job was just for show. Mike was under the illusion that he was covering all expenses with his salary. I relinquished my rights to the property and handed over the apartment to Mike for this reason. Alimony from Mike, covering Betty's alimony, the remaining credit payments, and monthly apartment installments. Mike's finances must have tightened significantly.
I could hear Betty's voice in the background. "What's going on? I didn't know we were paying installments."
She seemed to be causing a ruckus. I even heard the sound of a cup breaking. Then shamelessly, Mike asked me for help. He couldn't maintain his life with his salary alone and wanted me to help with the apartment installments. Unbelievable.
"What? Don't be ridiculous. Work hard and support each other with your young, pretty girlfriend."
I mocked him and hung up. I immediately blocked Mike's number. I had kept it unblocked just for this day. Now, I no longer needed Mike's number. Deleting his contact felt refreshing. Later, I heard that Mike and Betty couldn't maintain the apartment and had to put it up for sale quickly.
Betty, who married Mike immediately after our divorce, learned about his real salary and started claiming, "It's a scam, I was deceived," leading to a lawsuit.
It seems she's accusing him of fraud for misrepresenting his financial situation during marriage. Probably, Mike just didn't know about his own financial situation. Mike is working a side job at night after his main job, just to make the payments. Betty divorced Mike quickly. I moved to the countryside, which I had always wanted, and continue my graceful country living blog. I'm preparing to start a YouTube channel next month.